on a Monday afternoon in downtown Charlottesville. Schools start this week for most, if not all, of the public schools in Central Virginia. Tuesday and Wednesday starts, ladies and gentlemen, for the public schools in our area, and some changes for public schools. In particular, Albemarle County schools, as it applies to school resource officers, checks for weapons upon entering schools, and a very strict no cell phone policy and no smartwatch policy. We'll talk about that today on the program. I want to talk the UVA Board of Visitors on the show, ladies and gentlemen, a vote of no confidence from the UVA student body as it applies to the Board of Visitors. We'll have that conversation on the program today. J-Dubs, are we consistent on the stream here? Stream is good? Okay. I'm getting some folks texting me that it's kind of choppy on YouTube. We'll talk about the no confidence with Student Council and the Board of Visitors, and we will talk on today's program a message I received over the last few days from someone I trust, a connected person, as it applies to the rector of the University of Virginia and perhaps what Creed Deeds is doing with his investigation. That deadline, the 15th of August. So we have a short amount of time, the end of the week, until Creed Deeds' investigative deadline is upon us. So we'll have to talk about that this week on the I Love CVille Show. I want to remind you, the viewer and listener, that Conan Owen will join us on the program tomorrow. He's as connected from a business development standpoint as anyone I know in this community. And folks, that is my forte, business development. So when I come across somebody like Conan, who is on the front lines of networking and meet and greets and deal flow, I get excited to welcome him on the show. Judah, he's the owner and CEO of Sir Speedy of Central Virginia. They are locally owned and operated, Sir Speedy of Central Virginia. If you have a logo and you need something application-wise for your logo, direct mail, trifold pamphlets, any kind of hard marketing collateral, paper marketing collateral, signage. The step and repeat banner that's directly behind me is a Conan Owen special from Sir Speedy of Central Virginia. They're excellent with signage and window decals, excellent with direct mail. I cannot say more positive things about this locally owned and operated business and this entrepreneur. And he's going to bring a notebook chock full of information that's fresh from a business development standpoint to the show tomorrow, which I'm very excited about. We're going to talk Virginia football today. Injuries ravaging the Virginia football program during the preseason. We'll highlight some of those injuries. Unlike in years past, however, Virginia football has depth on its roster. So perhaps those injuries not as impactful in the preseason as in years past. Still a key offensive lineman down, a key defensive back is down. Multiple offensive linemen have actually been injured so far before the start of the season. We'll talk Tony Elliott, who's got one of the easiest schedules in all of America, not just the ACC. Tony Elliott has one of the easiest schedules in all of America. And boy, oh boy, does he need it as he is coaching for his life and his job here in Charlottesville. Perhaps the job of the athletic director, time will tell, with the new president in the works at the University of Virginia. Carla Williams does not have her safeguard, her bulletproof vest, Jim Ryan, around anymore. So maybe Carla Williams, if this football team struggles, is in a employment crossfire as well. A lot I want to cover on the program. Why don't you go to the studio camera and the two-shot. I'll ask you which headline you find most intriguing today, with parents about to jump for joy, I know in our house, with school starting in the very near future, ladies and gentlemen. And the students at the University of Virginia, first years and transfer students, their move-in date is August 21. So the public schools going back to school this week, and then first year and transfer students at the University of Virginia going back or moving to Charlottesville on the 10th of August, or on the 21st of August in 10 days. Judah, which headline most intrigues you and why?
Oh, I got to say that the poor UVA Board of Visitors is they're under fire again. Now from the students.
So why don't we start with that headline on screen, the vote of no confidence. The Student Council at the University of Virginia has followed the path of faculty of the University of Virginia with a vote of no confidence. These are the students. Do we put much merit into students voting no confidence with the Board of Visitors?
I think by itself, probably not, but taken as a whole with all the rest of the votes of no confidence and issues that have been cited over the current Board of Visitors, I'd say that it's something.
All right, I give you that. I think that's a great take. You're saying faculty no confidence, vote of no confidence from faculty.
Yeah.
Student council, now a vote of no confidence. I would imagine the Jefferson Council, if you ask them right now, they would offer a vote. Very curious if the Jefferson Council is on record with a vote of no confidence with the Board of Visitors. You got Cree Deeds, right? And the General Assembly demanding answers about Jim Ryan's resignation.
Mm-hmm.
The speculation is clean sweep with the Democrats in November and Spanberger potentially reappointing members of the board. I got this message over the weekend. What's the second headline we have to the BOV, J-Dubs?
Second headline is, will UVA BOV respond to Deeds' investigation?
So Cree Deeds' investigative demands have a deadline of the 15th of August, which is Friday.
Yeah.
He had how many questions? Do you remember the exact number?
I think it was 48. Or
Yeah.
was it 68?
It was an abundance of questions. We don't have to go deep in the weeds on that one, but an abundance of questions from Cree Deeds. Here's a message I received from someone who's connected. He asked that I not utilize his name, but I think it's something I should read on the program. He's given me permission to read this on the show. Connected person in the know. I will not use his name. This is not Deep Throat who sent me this, but this is someone who's been in this community for decades and is very close. Just knows a lot. He says this, and he routinely listens to the show, and he sent me this via text. The Cree Deeds letter is all about malfeasance. Rachel Sheridan, she's the rector, he says, is the hatchet woman sent by Glenn Youngkin to clean house. Rachel Sheridan is now the target of the Democrats. In short, she is required by law to respond to Cree Deeds' letter and investigation. If she does not, Governor Spanberger will declare she committed malfeasance by not responding and will eventually remove her. If she responds to Cree Deeds' letter and investigation, and she reveals that any or all of Cree Deeds' allegations of coordination with the DOJ or Donald Trump, then she will also face malfeasance charges. I believe, he says, she is the one behind the removal of Dr. Kent. You can expect litigation with Dr. Kent with his resignation. And he says, I understand she is the one the DOJ lawyer worked with to remove Jim Ryan. He closes by saying this in a text message to me. I've read the Cree Deeds letter multiple times. There is obviously someone with very deep knowledge talking with Cree Deeds. How else would Cree Deeds know all of these dates and have such specifics in his letter and investigation to the Board of Visitors? So this insider who watches and listens to the show, who's given me approval to pass along his comments as long as I do it anonymously, has indicated that Cree Deeds' investigation and the letter with dozens of questions, very pointed questions to the Board of Visitors, specifically to the rector and vice rector, is backed by intelligence and hatched with a plan to catch or trap what he calls the hatchet woman of Glenn Youngkin on the Board of Visitors.
Interesting.
It dovetails with the comments you've made this month of Youngkin setting a precedent for removing board members during the term.
Yeah.
We've asked the question, can anyone remember a time at the University of Virginia where a board member has been removed in the middle of the term besides Bert Ellis? And at the University of Virginia, we've been unable to do that.
Yeah.
We did, if memory serves, John Blair suggested or brought up last week, I think it was at Norfolk State with Bob McDowell removing a BOV member at Norfolk State. But we cannot come up with one at the University of Virginia. This is a ploy if our insider that listens to the show, and I have no reason to doubt him, he has sent me information in the past that has proven to be accurate and predictive, an indicator of what's to come in the future. And make sure you have the right lower third on screen here. If his information is correct, then we may see a very changed BOV come Spanberger settling in to the governor's mansion.
No doubt.
And if that does happen, I am curious to see the role faculty and students will play with a newly minted governor in appointing or influencing the next board members, which will then in turn hire the school president, provost, CEO of the health system, CEO of the hospital, and dean of the medical school. Significant period. I then asked this question for you, the viewer and listener. What is the actual role the student should play in this scenario? We're talking 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22-year-olds. Yes, they are the University of Virginia, the students that are learning there, but these are young adults trying to figure out life. Should they have any influence at all into board members, school presidents, provosts, CEOs, and deans? My take, no. When I was 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, the extent of what I could do was doing some partying, getting after it, making some money, chasing some girls. Certainly not the big picture vision of hiring the next president and provost and CEOs of the University of Virginia.
Yeah.
Your take on this?
It's pretty much the same thing. As I said, taken along with all the other shade tossed at the Board of Visitors, this vote of no confidence from the students is something, but I think they're reaching in terms of what they believe should be expected of the Board of Visitors in terms of including the students in presidential searches and other things like that.
Can you imagine a world where students were able to pick school presidents and the precedent that would set?
Right.
Can you imagine that? That would be a Pandora's box of certainly a boatload of content for this talk show, but a Pandora's box of murky proportions at best.
Yeah.
Wild time to be affiliated with the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, Virginia, folks. All right, next headline. Judah Wickhauer, what do you got?
We've got AHS, WAHS, and MHS.
Albemarle High School, Western Albemarle High School, and Monticello High School are now implementing daily screenings at building entrances for weapons.
Does that mean wands? Does that mean
state-of-the-art devices that are non-invasive and designed to detect weapons while minimizing disruption to the school day? Unlike traditional metal detectors, Open Gate allows individuals to walk through without stopping or removing personal items such as backpacks or water bottles unless additional screening is required. The rollout will begin shortly after Labor Day and followed a staggered schedule with each high school implementing daily screening on a school-specific timeline. The initiative is part of the division's ongoing efforts to enhance school safety and maintain secure, welcoming, learning environments. High school students will receive an orientation on the new system, and staff will be trained and supervised at screening stations to ensure efficiency and respect. Albemarle High School, Western Albemarle High School, and Monticello will implement this. This sounds like going through an airport security system to me. This open gate.
Potentially.
School resource officers will also be in the hallways, and a strict enforcement of no cell phones and no smartwatches during school hours. I'm all for all of this.
Yeah.
Can someone give me a reason why you would not be in favor of any of this? Conan, Owen, and Jason Noble, I'll get to your comments in a matter of moments. Give me a reason why you would not be in favor, parents, of school resource officers walking through these 2025 versions of metal detectors, and then the cell phones and smartwatches. I've heard from parents that the no cell phones and smartwatches restrict communication with parents and their kids at schools, and should there be some kind of violence or some kind of shooting event, the parents want to be connecting with their kids in schools. That is one argument I've heard. I don't agree with that argument. I empathize with that argument as a parent. If something happened in our son's school, we would want to be connected with him. But at the same time, we also know our son well enough that if he had a phone on his person or a smartwatch on his wrist, that would cause more distraction, and the downfall or the negative impacts of having the watch on his wrist or the cell phone on his person far outweigh the odds of some kind of mass violent event at his school. That's how I look at it.
I don't see it being any assistance whatsoever in case of violence. I agree with you. I empathize with parents wanting to be able to connect with their kids in case something happens, and they want to be reassured of their child's safety. But I don't see this trumping the distraction of them. And what if you're calling your kid was what clued a potential school invader?
What does that mean?
Your kid's phone starts ringing while they're hiding in a closet.
Okay, all right. I mean, I think that's also a stretch, but it's plausible. It's a stretch. It's plausible.
Yeah. But
so you're basically saying if parents hear through the rumor mill that there's an active shooter, you call your kid while your kid is hiding somewhere in the school, the ringer is on, and the active shooter finds your kid through the noise of the ringer.
Potentially. I mean, obviously, it's not a. It's as much of a concern as parents wanting to have their kids having phones so that they can call them.
The only argument I've heard that I can potentially consider, I do not buy the pipeline to prison argument with the school resource officer in the hallway. I do not buy for a second that having a school resource officer in the hallway is a pipeline to prison for students on the margin, whether finance, race, single parent.
I would say that anyone that thinks that an SRO, a school resource officer, is a pipeline to prison should go and talk to the SRO. But I have a feeling that the people that are worried about SROs being a pipeline to prison for certain types of students are not the actual parents of those students. The parents of those students are unlikely to come and visit the school to say hi to the school resource officer and find out whether or not the person is going to treat their child differently because of whatever, race, socioeconomic standing, so on and so forth.
I agree. The only one I will consider, you don't have to agree with me, but just it's an opinion-based show, it's a commentary-based show, is the parent not being able to connect with their kid during an active shooter scenario or some kind of rumored violence on school grounds. Mm-hmm. The only one. And I still see it that the likelihood of that happening, which is, thank the Lord, as of now, not very likely, is on the scales of justice, the negative impact of having a kid distracted by a watch or a phone is much more likely than an active shooter scenario at a school. For the first time in a really long time, think about this, viewers and listeners. Maybe for the first time since the beginning of COVID, I think Albemarle County Public Schools at the start of the year are on a good position. They have school resource officers in the high schools, basically metal detectors, weapon screenings at the high schools, no cell phone policies at the high schools, no smartwatches at the high schools. 5 or 6 years, this is the first time I feel for these schools confident going into the school year. You still have the predicament of performance standards slipping, but you're doing something with these regards.
Yeah.
Let us know your thoughts. Viewers and listeners, put them in the feed. I'll relay them live on air. We'll go to number one in the family, Deep Throat. He says this: I understand why Albemarle High School might need these policies. I would not want these applied to my own kids. That's why my kids do not go to public school. Send them to school with... I'm not going to read this sentence here. I understand what you're saying, Deep Throat, but I'm not going to read this sentence. He says, I understand why Albemarle High School might need these policies. I would not want these applied to my own kids. That's why my kids don't go to public school. I'm going to omit that sentence. Then he says, I won't have my kids in a place that need metal detectors with people who can't be trusted with a cell phone. I understand your comment, but you have the luxury of affording private school tuition, while most do not, or many do not. So I get your comment, Deep Throat, but I know you, that you also understand that not everyone has the financial resources that you have.
I don't know what the other sentence said, but it sounds to me like what he's really getting at is the fact that these schools are not they're not engaging with the root problem. They're just creating a way to prevent other problems.
Well, what's the root problem?
The root problem, like he said, is that there are kids in the school that need to have their phones taken away from them, or need to have school resource officers, or need to have metal detectors to prevent them from causing trouble in the school. If the school could address those problems, then they wouldn't need the school resource officers or the metal detectors or keeping phones out of the kids' hands.
I agree.
But
go
they
ahead.
don't have any way of dealing with those problems because they want to treat kids like
Cattle?
No, not like cattle. If they were cattle, then they'd collar them up, they'd tag their ears, and they'd
Brand them.
They'd brand them, or shock them, into running down the whatever. But the fact of the matter is, they want to treat them with kid gloves. They want to let them, they want to let them. What? 2 years ago, we were talking about kids running wild through the schools without any type of. There was no response.
Charlottesville High School, lawlessness. Ginny, who I'm going to get to your comments here in a matter of moments. And he says, I agree that there isn't much of a use case for phones for kids in schools, but I would like my kids to be around kids with discipline to keep their phones off in their bags. It is not a high bar.
Yeah.
I get that.
So
That's what Judah's saying.
Yeah.
I totally get that. But as a parent of a 7-year-old, I also know that phones and these screens are today's version of like narcotics and drugs for kids. It really is. And our 7-year-old, I'd like to think, is a 2-parent household. We're fairly strict on him. He's a good kid, but good God, he's addicted to being on screens and doom scrolling YouTube. Like, why even give him the opportunity? Just take it away. Like a discipline with a 7-year-old or discipline for a 13-year-old, a lot of times those are oxymorons. Comments continue to come in. The root problem is that we don't stratify schools by behavior, and the other root problem is parenting that creates bad behaving kids.
Yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying about the phone.
Than that, though.
I hear what you're saying about the phone, but I think he's hinting at the fact that parenting can involve making sure your kids aren't addicted to the screen, just the same way you would make sure that your kids don't get addicted to drugs.
You know how we make sure our oldest kid is not addicted to screens? Is we take the screen away. We don't allow them to be on screens.
Yeah, and
we don't allow it.
And I think Deep Throat's point is that
expecting a 7-year-old to have the discipline to not be on screen is just not.
Letting your kid smoke crack and then taking it away when you don't want them smoking it is a lot different than training your child not to get addicted to drugs.
And
I get that the phone
that on
is
paper,
addicted.
That on
addictive,
paper is very reasonable commentary, what you said.
And I get that the phone is addictive.
But your commentary is, and no disrespect,
I know, I'm not a parent.
is coming from someone who's not a parent.
Mm-hmm.
No disrespect.
But that gives me a certain...
Having a 7-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old have a phone on his person and expecting that 12 or 13-year-old in today's digital age not to use that phone while he's in school is asking too much. And the comparison to smoking crack is not applicable.
You're talking about something that's addictive. So I'm talking about something that's addictive.
Comments coming in here.
I think what Deep Throat is saying is that you don't let your child become addicted and then take the addictive substance, the phone, away from them when you don't want them using it.
Our kid, I'll tell you a story here. Our kid, and I've talked about this on the show in the past. Our 7-year-old is a second grader at a local private school. He had a birthday party over the summer. Not for him, but went to a birthday party over the summer at a local park. My wife and I, we have a soon-to-be 3-year-old, and he is a tornado right now. It's the definition of terrible twos. Terrible twos. It's extremely difficult to reason with him. If he gets angry and emotional, he's angry and emotional. So we're dividing and conquering for certain things as parents over the weekend. So for this particular birthday party, rising second graders at a local park, a splash pad, my wife said, you take our oldest son, I'll stay here with the terrible twos, who's having a meltdown. I'm like, okay. I almost did one of these, wipe my brow. Phew, thank goodness. Okay? So we drive over to the splash pad. The kids are having a great time on the splash pad. I'm talking to one of the moms there. And one of the moms said that her daughter, which is in the same class as our oldest son, we were considering, before we enrolled her in the school that your son's at, in this private school, they had this get-to-know day where you get to go to that school and spend the day going to school as kind of a get-to-know period. Mm-hmm. She came home from that get-to-know day, that experience day, and said, Mom, oh my gosh, this particular school, this private school, they actually do math with a pencil and paper instead of doing the math on the iPad. I had to use a pencil and add and subtract and carry my one and do my arithmetic with a pencil and paper instead of a stylus on an iPad. And the previous school that she was at, which is a phenomenal elementary school in the area in Albemarle County, some would say the best one. The mom said she was spending the entire day learning on an iPad. The entire day learning on an iPad in one of the best elementary schools in all of Albemarle County. So to say that the kids will have the discipline not to use screens when they're going to schools and learning on screens, I think, is, as Jason Noble has called it, and Jason Noble's pushing back on Deep Throat. Jason Noble's photo on screen says, Deep Throat's take is naive. That's from Jason Noble. Other parents are pushing back on what he has said. Spencer Pushard is watching the program, his photo on screen. He says, it's been a while since I was in high school, but back in 2011 and 2012, every kid had a phone, and from what I remember, it might have been a problem in 1 or 2 out of 10 kids in my classes. Most of us kept them out of sight and used only in bathrooms, lunch, and hallways. He says, granted, I am 100% sure it's a different world now. Spencer Pushard is someone I respect. He's a parent, he and his wife. Mm-hmm. Conan Owen's photo on screen. Conan Owen is going to be on the show tomorrow at 12:30, the owner of Sir Speedy of Central Virginia. He says, does a phone enhance the educational experience or outcomes? No. Do kids having phones in schools prevent school shootings? Also no.
Yep.
That's how I feel. Ginny Who's photo on screen. She says this. She says, hold on, there's a multiple. She says it's not just the ringer. Screens lighting up also give away location for an active shooter.
Yeah.
She also gives you props and said, I've said it on the program before, protocols for all devices to be off during an incident because it can alert intruders to a location.
Yeah.
Then she talks Spamberger. She says, 2 Spamberger canvassers came to my house. I had an interesting conversation with them. One really wanted to force her opinion but could only contrast Spamberger with federal government, not state. I politely responded with facts. She actually came back to thank me for being willing to talk with her. I told her I believe in civil discourse and was happy to discuss. Of course, she kind of ruined it when she parted by asking me if I was outside to get away from my kids. Pretty sure she missed the most important part of our discussion. Appreciate you, Ginny Who, watching the program. I would say Spamberger is an overwhelming favorite to beat Winsome Earl Sears. And I would also say that Spamberger and the Democrats are going to not only clean slate the top of the ticket, but downstream do some flipping as well. John Blair's got comments. Let's go to John. He's talking about the comments I made at the beginning of the show, my insider about what Creed Eads is doing with the investigation and how Rachel Sheridan, the rector, is the hatchet man of Glenn Youngkin, and she's now being positioned to face malfeasance and potentially ousted from the board by Spamberger when she wins. John Blair says, it is interesting your source mentions Craig Kent. Again, I think you and I agree. The entire story about UVA and the BOV isn't close to being public knowledge. Kent, Horton, Kibbe, this report that the BOV received about the medical center, the 128 anonymous doctors last year. I know that the sexy angles of the story are Youngkin, Jim Ryan, DOJ, and DEI. If you recall, during your interview of Ellis, I wouldn't call his answers evasive, but the answers to your questions about the medical center were very guarded. They were very guarded, the Burt Ellis comments on the medical center. And I still am getting feedback on that interview we did with Burt Ellis. That interview is available online, viewers and listeners, if you want to watch that interview with fired Board of Visitors member Burt Ellis. We're talking 2 topics here. I think the topic that's got a lot of folks talking in Charlottesville is this: Albemarle High School, Monticello High School, and Western Albemarle High School return to school, I believe it's Wednesday. And on Wednesday, for the first time ever, first time ever, is this the first time ever? There's going to be a school resource officer there. There's going to be metal detectors and weapon detectors that you're walking through. And there's going to be a no cell phone and no smartwatch policy that's the strictest it's ever been. So ever is the right word.
Yeah.
For Monticello, Western, and Albemarle High School. And from my standpoint, I give Albemarle County Public Schools, who catch a lot of heat from me, major props for starting the school year this way, with what I call common sense.
Yeah. Well, some of those policies are statewide.
The no cell phone, no smartwatch is Yunkin push. Absolutely. Deep Throat's got some problems here. But Jerry, you won't give your kid a phone to take to school if you feel he can't be trusted to keep it in his bag because you are a responsible parent. That's true. I would not give our kid... Dude, you know what's crazy? Is where our son goes to school, there were some first graders that had phones. And our kid is a rising second grader. They now have these smartwatches with limited functionality, but the ability to call and text certain people. And why they're utilized is to coordinate drop off and pick up in location around sports or extracurricular activities. And they all have them. Deep Throat says, by the way, the policy at my kid's school is phones off and in their bag. Only my oldest has a phone. There has never been an issue. Occasionally, the teachers have taken phones from other kids, but it's rare. It's fine as far as I can tell because parents support the school and enforce the consequences.
Yeah.
And then he says, why should my kid have to experience school like an airport or prison because of the worst 5% of kids' behavior? You want to touch that one?
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying before about schools treating kids with kid gloves these days, allowing a wild group of students to run around a school, terrorizing not just other students but teachers, and yeah, he's got a point. Like those are the kids that should be, they should be dealt with somehow, whether it's whatever. I'm not a teacher, I'm not an administrator, but allowing that type of disorder just goes to show that you don't have a grasp on your school.
Lisa Costello's photo on screen, we've dubbed her the Queen of Cherry Avenue. Is there not a deeper issue? If we are having to screen students in schools for weapons, is that an admission our schools are not safe? Do not think a student can sneak a weapon in very easily. Is weapon screening only a false sense of security?
That's a good point, too. And again, goes to the fact that they're not dealing with the underlying problem. They're just putting systems in place to try to stop the problem from affecting other students.
I totally understand what you're saying. There are so many underlying problems with teenagers. Our kid is 7 years old, and I'm already seeing stuff that we're going to have to deal with. You know what's crazy? Our 7-year-old kid is already asking me about girls. Asked me the other day, how does kissing work? Actual question. Our 7-year-old is asking about business questions. I said, how did you figure this out? He goes, something I watched on YouTube. Is today's kid more advanced or further along than yesteryear's kid?
I think they just have access to a wider pool of information.
Right, which makes them more advanced.
No, if you're not teaching them how to, what's the word I'm looking for? Differentiate between the important and the unimportant. If you don't teach them how to sieve out some of the dross, I mean, yes, they're going to be inundated by information.
There's a kid,
but not all of it is important.
There's a little boy that's our son's age, and his parents, they also have two sons in their house, like my wife and I, and his parents do not allow screen time at all for their rising second grader and rising kindergartner. Not just no screen time, no TV time. they get 1 hour of video content per week, and that 1 hour of video content per week has to be video content in a foreign language, which is the language that the mother speaks. Mom,
Okay.
English is a second language for a mom. She's foreign. She's new, and they only get 1 hour of content per week, and it must be in the, and I don't want to say which one, so I'm not outing anyone. It must be in the language of mom's first language. Okay, so they're teaching these two boys to be bilingual. They're raising their boys in two-language household. It is smart. When the oldest is in conversation with his friends around sports, when sports aren't happening, like on a break from sports, before sports, after sports, I see him often. And topics that come up amongst the boys about life, like Pokemon, or like Mr. Beast, or LeBron James, the boys that don't get to watch content literally are left outside of the conversation, are like outside looking in through a window when their other peers are talking about trading Pokemon or Charizards or Pokemons or Pikachus, graded cards, LeBron James, Mr. Beast, and whatever, show, Sing in the movie that's streaming on Netflix.
I would count most of that as a good thing.
So is it where's the line drawn?
Do they need to know? Is there any benefit whatsoever to knowing who Mr. Beast is?
But their peers, that's how they're bonding and talking. And these folks, because they don't have that, these two young men, because they don't have that baseline for conversation, are left often just as wallflowers of this socialization that's happening
Yeah.
4 or 5 days a week. And those kids that are talking about Pokemon and Charizard and Pikachu and trading graded cards and LeBron James and Mr. Beast and Sing that's streaming on Netflix, and that's a terrible example of a movie streaming on Netflix. Our 7-year-old likes Sing, but there's other ones that he's watching. I should know they are. That conversation is as much what's bonding him with his friends as playing the sports for that hour when they're all together. Video games, another example.
Yeah.
Like, what's the line?
First of all, not all kids are into all the same things. So, and second, do any of those things, I mean, I get that it's a socialization thing, but are any of those actually helpful to the kids? If they were spending time watching
How's it any
Sing?
different? How's it any different than us as kids watching Home Alone, or us as kids watching trading baseball cards and football cards, or us as kids watching like Michael Jordan and Isaiah Thomas play?
I was in school with kids that didn't all have the same, weren't all on the same economic stratus, and some of the kids had like all the cable channels, HBO, Cinemax, everything. Others just had the basic channels. Was that wrong somehow that the kids without cable couldn't talk about the movies that were on HBO and Cinemax? I get that it's like an equality thing, but there's no reason to think that these kids are missing out on Pokemon. They're learning other things during the day, whether it's going out and learning, being in nature and learning about nature, or whether it's reading, or I don't know what the parents do to keep them occupied during the times when other kids would be doom scrolling on their phone. But do you really think they're worse off?
John Blair's got this. He's the father of John, is your son a teen now? Is he a teenager now? Might be a teenager. He says, Jerry, here's a word-for-word conversation with my son this weekend. My son said, do you think NVIDIA is a buy or sell? John Blair said, hold, son. It's a hold. His son responded to John, I think it's a sell. Its price to earnings ratio is over 50. John Blair responds to his son, how do you know this? His son says to John, YouTube Shorts. John, A, the advice you gave your son, NVIDIA as a hold, very smart. Do not sell NVIDIA. That's the top holding in my portfolio. And B, I have similar scenarios with our son. Our son, through YouTube Shorts, I don't know how they get into this algorithm funnel of content. And this kid is 7 years old, was talking to me about taking the change in his piggy bank, rolling them into the tubes, into the paper tubes you get from the bank.
I know.
Trading them in for paper money and having that paper money on hand, which will take up less space in his room and will allow him to take the money he has on his person out of his room to go make trades and transactions to get more money. He goes, it will be much more difficult for me to carry this huge piggy bank that's very heavy to go and get graded Pokemon cards that I need to scale up the value of my portfolio. And I want Beckett Black Label 10 Charizards and Pikachus that I'm going after. And I'm like, how do you know this? He goes, YouTube Shorts. So now I have to go to the bank and bring those paper tubes home so we can, tonight and this week, roll the kids into the coins. He wants to do it. I want to make him happy.
Okay.
We take the change out of the piggy bank and we roll them into tubes and we take them in the bank so he gets paper money so he can then take it out of the house and learn how to make a deal. That's a good thing, right?
Potentially.
Wild times we live in. Jason Noble says, this is the absolute least the schools can do. They can't fix all the underlying issues Judah is talking about. I don't think they can fix the underlying issues that you're talking about either.
Sadly.
I
think the problem is they don't know how.
Either they don't know how or they don't think it's their responsibility.
No, I think they don't know how.
Vanessa Parkhill, watching the program, depends on how you define advanced. Tech-wise, sure, today's kids are more advanced. However, in my grandparents' generation, young men lied about being 18 to enlist to fight for our country in World War II. Today, we have 25-year-olds still on parents' insurance and having a meltdown if someone doesn't ask for their pronouns. Is that advanced? And Vanessa Parkhill said, I loved wrapping coins when I was young. Our son cannot wait. And we're going to use this wrapping coin experiment, which is going to take us hours to do because this piggy bank is very heavy.
You know they make things for that speed it up, right?
What's that?
You know they make things that speed that whole process up, right?
What, like taking it to the grocery store and losing 15% of the value of your piggy bank?
It's not what I was talking about.
What? You're saying the rollers?
They've got, I mean, I don't even know what they're called, but they're like things that have, you pour coins in and they get sorted automatically, and then you can just drop those into one of the.
But part of what I want to do with our son is
make him
open
count
the
it all?
piggy bank, dump all the coins on the table, have them break them down by a quarter, dime, nickel, and penny, sort them, count them, show them this is how much. Use it as a lesson, and then like the time that he and I spend in these one-on-one scenarios, like Sunday, we took the whole morning with each other. We went rock climbing on a rock wall. We went swimming at a pool. We played squash. We ate some goldfish. And in that 3-hour period of time, he's like, we just bonded. He was talking to me literally about girls. He's 7, boggled my mind, but I didn't act surprised. Said, you can always talk to me about it. He talked to me about how do you get a job? He said, tell me about what you do at your job. He talked to me about this YouTube short thing about wanting to roll the quarters so he can convert it to paper money, which would be easier to transition outside of his room. The experience is the educational opportunity. It's not about efficiency. No, trust me, I would want to be efficient. But it's like the older you get as a parent, the more you realize it's the process that is parenting. Because during that process, you're able to parent. It's like driving to and from school with the radio off and silence some mornings, but driving to and from school with the radio off, nonstop talking, and a captive audience, and the ability to offer some advice as a parent. Anyway, wild times. Coinstar, Jason Noble. What's Coinstar take? Is it 15%, Jason? What's the fee on Coinstar? Isn't it 15%? Bill McChesney, we did not discuss the Hall Pass program at Albemarle Schools yet. Send us the Hall Pass program information. We'll talk about that tomorrow. It's 1:26. We have to talk some other topics, and goodness gracious, I have to get some of those rolls from Truist Bank here. What other topics do we have on the show, Judah?
Let's see. We've got what should AlbCo's economic dev priorities be?
So this is a topic I want to have on the show moving forward. Albemarle County's commercial and business taxes tied to business and industrial in Albemarle County are about 11.3%. B. Lepisto currently called it about 12%. Sean Tubbs had the number 11.3%. Albemarle County would like to get that number closer to 20%. So if you're somewhere between 11 and 12% for your tax revenue collection tied to business in Albemarle County, and you want to get that number closer to 20%, that's a big-time uptick.
It's, yeah.
Massive uptick here. So I want to ask the viewers and listeners, and you guys are super smart, how should Albemarle County prioritize expanding its business tax collections in a way that's smart and healthy? I'm really losing steam and momentum on data centers. They're becoming way less appealing to me. Mm-hmm. Initially, I was like, let's bring it on. You helped open my eyes, Jude, on the data centers. I'm now reading what these Louisa County residents are going through with these data centers, and it sounds miserable.
Yeah.
It sounds absolutely miserable. The data center question I asked on Friday of Scott Smith and Fred Missel. Scott Smith, the Republican, both are running for the Samuel Miller district seat in the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors. Scott Smith, the Republican, said hell no to the data centers. Fred Missel basically said, look, I think we need to consider them.
You said I'd need to hear more.
We need to hear more, but I think we need to consider them.
Yep.
What is a healthy way for Albemarle County to drive business tax collection? Because if it can get that number from 11.3% closer to 20%, then the burden on homeowners will potentially lessen.
Potentially.
I'm not even buying that, because I think if Albemarle County gets another 6-8% in the business tax collection revenue, they're just going to find a way to spend it without alleviating the burden of homeowners on real estate taxes. Still, they're saying, as of now, they're saying the right things, that if we can up the business tax collection, then the burden on homeowners will diminish, because we can either hold the line or drop the line. So I want to have this conversation this week on the show. Not right now, but this week on the show. Conan, Owen, you start percolating this answer for tomorrow. What is the best way for Albemarle County to drive business and industrial commercial tax collection? You have data centers, right? You have more taxes like the meals tax, which I don't think is a good idea. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you feel. Sales tax, I don't think that's increasing either of those is a good idea.
Yeah.
For me, it should be truly economic development. And that's going to dovetail into our next topic that we'll hold later this week on the show. School is starting again Wednesday for Albemarle County. UVA first years and transfer students start moving in the 21st of August. So what should the businesses in our community do differently this year to capture new and incremental revenue with kids that are returning to school?
Is this more specifically about UVA?
UVA or public schools, but certainly more specifically UVA. Like, ideas for that would be the small businesses should be more digitally and social media savvy. Where the kids are, they're living on screens. so getting their brand on screens. But I want to have that conversation. And then the last topic on the show, and before we get to that last topic, Charlottesville Sanitary Supply has been in business for 61 years. They are digitally savvy guys with an e-commerce store at charlottesvillesanitarysupply.com. Their brick-and-mortar location is on East High Street, Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. 61 years in business, a third-generation family, and the Vermillions, the owners. They've lived in Albemarle County for 5 generations. Their business is 3 generations. If you need sanitary supplies, anything at all, Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. They keep the Miller family swimming pool crystal clear blue. We'll close on this, and we'll talk about this on the Jerry and Jerry show. But injuries are now ravaging this Virginia football team. They've lost an offensive tackle that was projected to be a starting tackle. Their starting right tackle suffered a foot fracture. Macallan Thomas, surgery for a broken bone in his foot, and is out as much as 3 months.
Wow.
They're now going to need, maybe a tackle by committee until someone secures the starting job while this guy's on the disabled list. They also lost a defensive back, ladies and gentlemen, and Jamarick Morris, a fifth-year defensive back who had impressed coaches with his work at corner in the first week of training camp, tore an ACL and will be lost for the season. So a couple of injuries are now impacting Virginia and key guys that would play either with the first stringers or the second stringers. We'll talk about that tomorrow at 10:15 a.m. with Jerry Ratcliffe, a Virginia football team that some folks are saying has the 4th easiest schedule in all of the country, but was picked at the bottom, 14th in the ACC preseason polls, ladies and gentlemen. That's the show on a Monday. Judah Wickhauer, Jerry Miller, the I Love CVille Show. So long.